so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Maui. Like so many of the children we're blessed to serve, there's a bigger story, bigger than you even imagine, right? And because of that, you're gonna need a really big book to write even more chapters. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, it's heavy. Good evening, everyone. Give Maui another round of applause, please. Wow, what a beautiful evening. I think before I say anything, I want you guys to do something for me, okay? Just take your right hand, put it on your heart. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Take some deep breaths. We've taken in a lot of content. Just breathe in through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And now repeat after me. I am a part of the bigger story. One more time. I am a part of the bigger story. Thank you. My name is Leah, and I have the privilege of serving Saving Innocence as the new board chair. Yes. And as I shared tonight, all of you will become more aware of why that's so significant to me. I also have the honor of taking you on a bit of a journey through time to give some context for the bigger story we're speaking of tonight. The bigger story we're all talking about has a past, it has a present, and it has a future, and they're worth further exploration. As I was thinking about what I would share tonight and thinking about my own lived experiences, I am a person who has survived this tragedy. I was a little torn because I'm going, okay, I'm going to talk about my own narrative, but I really want to talk about saving innocence. And I think it's important to share a little bit of a testimony because it ties into how I've come to the place that I'm at today and also how we've come collectively to the place where we all are today. So I want to take you to the past first. So the year was 1998 and I was 14. I know I don't look that old, but I was 14 in 1998. And that year I ran away from home. And I thought I was running to freedom. I had a violent encounter with my father. My dad was struggling with his own traumas and unhealed stuff. And we had a really bad encounter, and I made up in my mind that I was going to leave. I was the oldest of my dad's children. I had siblings that looked up to me. And I still remember the day that I hopped in the car with one of the first people who attempted to exploit me. My siblings and my cousins were all on the sidewalk watching me put my bags in this trunk and drive off in a car with a stranger. That person was a drug dealer in my community, and in the later 90s, a lot of what we called D-boys that were selling dope back in the day started exploiting women. And so it's not that it was a new thing, it was just that the penalties for selling drugs had increased so significantly that it's like, okay, well, let's find another criminal industry. And so they turned to trafficking children and women and boys. And within a matter of months, I was being transported from city to city and being exploited, having my vulnerabilities manipulated and being put in situations that no 14-year-old should ever have to experience. I was eventually brought to Los Angeles. I'm originally from San Francisco, from the Bay Area. For a long time, anytime I came to the city, I would avoid Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood in that area just because I had so many traumatic memories associated with my exploitation in that particular part of this region. And, fortunately for me, when I was brought here, there was an organization here in this community that was doing outreach. They weren't necessarily doing outreach that was informed. It was an outreach that was educated. There was no systematic response in this region at all. There was no law enforcement training. There was no saving innocence, right? It was just a group of good people that were trying to go out and do outreach. And I'm so grateful that they took the time to spend time with me and to talk to me. But at the time, there was no crisis intervention. There was no case management. I was not identified as a victim. And there were no offers of therapy. And honestly, very little empathy. My encounters with law enforcement in that experience, in that 4-year window of me being exploited, they were not fun. I had a lot of bad experiences, unfortunately. Eventually, at 18 years old, I was able to experience some significant transformation. I met a young lady who was 19 years old, and she started talking to me about her faith. And her faith eventually became my faith. And her community eventually became my community. She was completely different than me. She was a girl who was a virgin, who had a 2-parent home, and the people that she lived with loved her. And I looked at their family as an example of what I hoped I would have in the future, that maybe, just maybe, I'd have a kid that would be protected the way that she had been. That girl believed in me. She believed in me when I could not believe in myself. She would cast vision for what the future Leah would look like, what my life would be like. She spoke so much life over me. And I held on to what she told me I could be. And I was experiencing some of the hope that came with a brand new transition. I got out. Yes. I got out and the sun came out and I started to realize that there was hope for me and there were opportunities ahead, but I had no idea how symptomatic I would become. So I began having flashbacks and nightmares and dealing with all the symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder without having a label or a diagnosis. I lived that way with those nightmares. I lived that way with not being able to walk down the street in broad daylight because I was afraid someone was going to come behind me and attack me, so I'd step to the side because my anxiety would get so high because I'd been attacked from behind before. And I had no idea that I was dealing with PTSD. I spent 7 years like that. Eventually, as I was going to college and working on myself, I declared my major and things were looking up for me. I had been out for about 4 years and I got a call that changed my life. I found out that a girl that I had been trafficked with was a victim of homicide. She was actually a foster youth. And she had been murdered on her 22nd birthday in Las Vegas. She was killed by a sex buyer. And I went into a really dark place. I felt guilty. I had been groomed and my natural leadership abilities had been exploited for the benefit of a trafficker. And so I was involved in her recruitment. But because I did not understand my victimization, there was nobody there to help me define what I had experienced. I blamed myself. I lived with that grief without any specialized support, a ton of guilt, and a burning desire to make sense of what happened to her. But I carried on. And I began to dream of a future when girls like us would be supported. That's how my advocacy journey began. It wasn't my own experiences that birthed that fire to make a difference. It was watching the tragedy that she experienced. And it was an attempt at the time when I started to do this work. It was an attempt to make sense of homicide and grasp at hope. Bishop Desmond Tutu said that hope is being able to see light despite all of the darkness. Somehow, I still saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And guess what? I was not the only person. Other survivors all over the country, all over the world, advocates, leaders, people like the people in this room, all over the place, were starting to wake up to see the dignity that people like me needed to experience. And the human trafficking movement was gaining all this traction and propelling forward. That's the past. Now for the present. The year is 2023, and I live in the future that I dreamed of. I live in the future that I fought for. There are coordinated efforts in this city and all over this nation. There is compassionate law enforcement, judges that run trauma-informed courtrooms. There are laws and policies in place to address the need for justice and to protect the vulnerable. Team members at Saving Innocence respond to crisis calls, and they tirelessly give their lives to the young people that we serve. The Saving Innocence team in Los Angeles, in the same city that I used to dread visiting, that team teaches these young people life skills, secures housing placement, supports their families, and celebrates their accomplishments. Didn't they do that well tonight? And most importantly, they ensure that these girls do not have to be alone as they navigate their healing journey. They ensure that these people are supported. I'd like for the Saving Innocence team to stand up. Alan, you too, if you guys can just stand up for a moment wherever you're seated. Stay standing. Through the pandemic, they served. Through losing their clients to tragedy, they serve. And through the emotional weight of the work that they do every day, they serve. And they do it faithfully, and they do it excellently. Give them another round of applause, please. You guys can have your seats. Thank you. Okay, you guys can take a seat. I just love this team so much. As for me, my present day is filled with wedding ceremony and honeymoon planning because I'm getting married in June. That fine young man that walked me to the stage, that is my forever love. My bridal party decided to show up to support me today, to surprise me today. And every single one of them is a person that shares my narrative. If you guys could just have a glimpse into the way that we were turned against sisterhood through this world of exploitation, taught to compete and to compare and to hate each other for the sake of trying to win the love of a man. The fact that we have what we have now, talk about victory. That is victory. I also am excited to say that me and my baby just bought a house in Texas, overlooking some cattle. I'm from California, he's from Michigan, but we're born-again Texans, okay? And our little dog and our children are so happy. It's a beautiful life. And I'm blessed to continue to influence community transformation in new and exciting ways. I get to lead an organization in Texas that advances health equity and serves the underserved. And sharing Saving Innocence is one of the biggest blessings of my life in this season. I accepted this role not just because of the work, but because I know what a healthy nonprofit organization looks like. And Saving Innocence is a healthy organization. Now let's talk about the future really quick before I take my seat, because this bigger story includes every single person in this room. You get to be a part of this future. You get to be a part of the future of this organization, as do I. Going forward, our objective is to continue to build out our foster family agency, to continue to expand our team, and to continue to increase our intervention efforts. And because we're stepping into an even bigger story and we are growing, we're going to be launching a capital campaign soon, so you guys stay tuned for that. And now, without further ado, I get to invite up the executive director of Saving Innocence. Where's Alan? There he is. Alan, give a round of applause for Alan.